Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Best in Slot, and today we are going to do something a little bit different on the channel. We're going to do some Hearthstone content for the first time in a very long time, because I love Hearthstone. I play loads of Hearthstone, and yet it never goes on the channel, and I know a lot of you have been asking for it a little bit more, so every now and again we're going to do a little something. For today, what we're going to do is discuss the Grand Tournament, which is an upcoming expansion, and we're kind of going to give a review of all the cards that have been released so far, which I believe is about 33 or so. I probably should have counted them, actually, but I haven't. So we're going to go through the cards, discuss where they fit in the meta, whether they're any good, whether they're any fun, so you guys know where I am as a player. I'm an average, like, let's say, rank 5 player or so. I mainly play Arena, where I usually go sort of 7, 8. I'm pretty good. I'm a good player. I'm not an amazing player, but I'm a pretty good player. You know, I know what I'm talking about, ish. I'm mainly an Arena player, so a lot of the card judging will be from an Arena point of view, where it's, yeah, that's about it, really. So let's get started. This is a new expansion coming out like later in August. 132 cards, I believe, being released, 5 for each class, including a new legendary. It's all very exciting. It's about time we got a nice big influx of cards again, like we did in Goblins versus Gnomes. Let's start. We're just going to work our way up from the bottom of the mana to the top of the mana and find out what is what. So first card is bing, Lowly Squire. So I should explain. As you can see, it says Inspire, gain 1 attack in the card text. Now, Inspire is a new mechanic just being added for the Grand Tournament. And what Inspire means is basically every time you use your hero ability, your 2-mana hero ability, it activates the Inspire text. So if you play Lowly Squire in turn 1 and turn 2 you use your hero ability, Lowly Squire will become a 2/2. Unfortunately for Lowly Squire, that's still not very good. It's a 1-drop, which is always okay. It's always nice to have 1-drops, especially in Arena. You really want to make sure you've got 1-drops, 2-drops, 3-drops. You don't want to miss your early mana curve. But it doesn't do enough. I think it could have been a 2/2. I think it could have been a 2/2 and still be okay. Or even a 2/1 would have been better, so it can trade with a 2/3 on turn 2. This kind of trades with a 2/3, but the problem is what you do is you'd play Lowly Squire turn 1. Let's say your opponent plays a Zombie Chow or whatever. You inspire it next turn, you get a 2/2, you attack the Zombie Chow, your Lowly Squire dies, and you have to use your hero power in order to do that. And there's a lot of classes that don't want to use their hero power on turn 2. Warriors, Priests, Warlock, you're okay. Druids and Mages are the better options than Rogue as well. Hunters don't want to be hero powering on turn 2. Early turns, you want to be having board presence, you know? And I don't think Lowly Squire does it. I don't think it's not a good card, basically. It won't see play. But it's a good card to introduce beginners to the game, to how the Inspire mechanic works, which I think is probably the point. Boop! Next up is Totem Golem. So there's only one new 1-drop so far. This card is insane. This card is absolutely insanely good. It's so powerful. This is a new Shaman card, as you can tell by the blue border kind of thing. Overload 1, to those who don't know what Overload means. Basically, so turn 2 you have 2 mana, turn 3 you have 3 mana. If you play a card with Overload, you lose 1 mana next turn. So turn 2 you'd have 2, turn 3 you'd have 2, turn 4 you'd have 4. Still, it's worth the payout. The 2 mana 3/4 is going to trade with absolutely everything that can be played on turn 2, and then survive to kill most things on turn 3 as well, or at least even like trade evenly. This is a great card, and the totem type on the minion, which is the first time we've had like a proper attacking minion with the totem type, is actually going to be really important as well. This is a great card for Shaman, really good card for Shaman. Shaman have been really lucky in the Grand Tournament so far, lots of fantastic cards, and I think it's going to really bring them back into the meta quite a lot, as we'll see. But yeah, in Arena, absolutely insane. Arena's all about board control. This is going to let you trade effectively early on. The art looks awesome. I love this card. This card is so powerful. It really is. Boop! Next up is Garrison Commander. 2 mana, 2/3. You can use your hero power twice on your turn. It's okay. A lot of people are getting very excited about these cards. There's a few cards that edit how many times you can use your hero power and stuff like that, or the cost of your hero power, and people are getting quite excited about the idea of them. I don't think they're going to work out that well, personally. For example, Garrison Commander, you play it on turn 2, it's a 2 mana 2/3. That's it. You play it on turn 3. It's a 2-mana 2/3. You can't use your hero power. Play it on turn 4. It basically has to be played on turn 6 for you to actually use your hero power twice on that turn. Because the fact is, if you leave him up on the board, he's probably going to get killed. And the problem with that is, one, you don't want to play a 2-mana 2/3 and then hero power twice on turn 6. You want to do something. You want to put stronger minions down on the board. And I think this is what a lot of people are missing. People are getting very excited about the synergy and all these combinations you can do. But a lot of them aren't very board presence focused, and in Arena in particular, that is a big thing. This card, it's okay. I mean, it's better than Crocolisk, for example, which is a vanilla 2-mana 2/3 without the effect. But I don't think you can use your hero power twice is ever really going to be that much of a factor to matter, even with all the other cards that we'll see in a minute. It's okay. It's okay. I think, generally speaking, it's a vanilla 2/3, and considering it's an epic, boop. Next up is Flame Juggler. Battlecry, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. In my opinion, better than blimmin' this dude. So they're both 2-mana 2/3s. He lets you use your hero power twice. This guy comes on and just chucks out a single damage. Not a great card. Kind of like a weaker Knife Juggler in a lot of ways. Although this one does guarantee damage, while Knife Juggler lets you throw out 1 damage every time you summon a minion. You tend to get at least 1 or 2 with a Knife Juggler. So this is slightly weaker, but it's okay. It's decent enough if your opponent plays a 1-mana 2/1, which is quite common, like a Leponome or a Worgen Infiltrator. You play the Flame Juggler on turn 2, you take out their 1-mana card for free, and you've still got 2/3 on the board. That's pretty strong. It's not a bad card. It's above average, but not amazing, I'd say. It's a nice little controller in the early game. Solid 2-drop, basically. Fallen Hero. Your hero power deals... This I like. For one, 2-mana 3/2 is better than a 2-mana 2/3, because a 2-mana 3/2 can trade up into a lot of 3-mana cards, whereas a 2/3 can't. A hero power deals 1 extra damage. Again, kind of falls under the same problem as the Garrison Commander, in that you don't want to really play it late game because, 1 extra damage, a 3/2 in the late game isn't that great, blah, 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 blah. And early game, this is better. This is definitely better. Let's say you play Fallen Hero turn 2. If you've gone first or you've coined it out, your opponent now can't play a 3/2 because you just ping it off. And that's a great card advantage play. You're taking out one of his cards and it's only costing you 2 mana. You don't lose a card in the process. So I think this guy's actually definitely better. I think he'll become quite a staple if inspired decks become a thing. A great pick in Arena because the extra damage lets you control the board early on. It really limits what your opponent can play unless they have a removal spell. And I also think he works much better with some of the other abilities we'll see, particularly the mage cards like this guy is, later on. Boop! Lock and Load. This card's rubbish, I think. I like that it's a slow card. For those who don't know, Hunters, which is what this class is, are very face-orientated at the moment. Hunters like to blow up the face and do very little else. The art is awesome. I don't know why it's a gnome. Gnome is the only class in World of Warcraft that can't be a hunter. But that's a gnome hunter. Whatever. I'm not here to judge. I think it's a gnome anyway. Anyways, each time you cast a spell this turn, add a random hunter card to your hand. The problem is, you start to look at what spells hunters use, right? You've got Kill Command, which is 3 mana. You've got Hunter's Mark, which is 0 mana. You've got Arcane Shot, which is 1 mana. You've got Quick Shot, which is 2 mana. Ball of Spiders, which we'll see later, which is 6 mana. I don't think you're likely to get more than, say, 2 cards from this on average. And 2 mana draw 2 cards is good, but it's 2 mana draw 2 random hunter cards, so you've got no guarantee of what you could get. You could draw some amazing stuff, or you could draw some absolute rubbish. It's a little bit RNG for my liking. It doesn't fit into any current hunter decks, If a very slow control hunter comes out with a lot more traps, a lot more hunter's marks and stuff like that, which isn't really being played at the moment, then explosive shot, stuff like that, I can see this maybe being played. I like the idea of doubling up, so you use 2 of them, and then for a start you'd get another card from the second lock and load and blah blah blah. Hunters don't really have a good card draw mechanic at the moment ever since Starving Buzzard got nerfed, so this is a great idea, and it's nice that Blizzard are focusing on control hunters and slower hunters. I just feel it might be a little bit weak. I think it has to be very late game for you to get any use out of it. The fact that it's a random hunter card, we'll see. I'm not convinced either way on this one. It's at least okay. I don't think it's as good as some people think it might be. And it's definitely control. I've seen some people saying it's a face card. This is the opposite of a face card. Boop! Tuskarr Totemic is so good as well. Summon any random totem. So that includes the free mana, the free 2-mana 3/4 we saw from earlier, the Totem Golem dude. And it's worth noting, if you summon him via this battle cry, he won't have that overload anymore. So on 3 mana, you could play a 3/2 and a 3/4 with no overload. That's in Arena. If you play this in Arena and you get a Tuskarr Totem Golem, you win the game. In my opinion, you pretty much win. That is a very, very, very hard thing to come back from. The problem is, a lot of the time, you're not going to summon the Totem Golem. I think it's a 1 in 8 chance. A lot of the time, you're going to get one of the basic Shaman Totems, or a Flame Tongue, which would be pretty good, or a Mana Tide, which would be pretty good, or a Vitality, which would be pretty bad. A Vitality Totem gives you 4 health at the end of each turn, and nobody cares about health. Health is useless. Health is a resource that must be spent to kill things. But even if you get one of the basic totems, a totem's worth 2 mana. The guy is value, he really is. You pay 1 mana for a 2 mana effect, with the possibility of being a much more than 1 mana effect. If you get a Mana Tide from this, you're looking really good. If you get a Flame Tongue from this, you're looking really good. If you get Totem Golem from this, you're looking really good. 3 out of the 8 are fantastic, so yeah, really, really strong card, and having totems on the board can be important, as we'll see in the future. Boop! Next up is Silver Hand Regent, a very strange card, because why is it not a Paladin card? Inspire, summon a 1/1 Silver Hand Recruit. So every time you use your hero ability, you get a 1/1 on the board. Silver Hand Recruits are 1/1s that are summoned by the hero ability for Paladin at the moment. So if you were a Paladin and you played this card, you'd actually get 2 1/1s, which is pretty cool. And if you had that with Garrison Commander, you could have 4 1/1s on 1 turn for loads of mana, and it'd be rubbish. This isn't a great card. It's too slow. It doesn't do enough for the Inspire mechanic. You know, we'll see some cards where you use Inspire and you get quite a lot from that Inspire mechanic. A 1/1 simply isn't worth it. On what isn't a great body, I think this could have been a 3/4 and still be, you know, perfectly reasonably done. What you can do, you play this turn 5. You get a 3/3 and a 1/1 for 5 mana. And your hero ability, I suppose, but nah. Not going to see play in anything at all. It's okay in Arena. 3 mana for free stats. It's okay. You know, you wouldn't say no. It passes the vanilla test with the little Inspire mechanic. If you're going to be hero power and get away, you may as well use it, but I just don't see it seeing play. Boop! Coliseum Manager. Apologies for the crappy art on this one. Coliseum Manager, 3 mana 2/5, which I love as stats. If we talk about just Arena for a second, 2/5 is fantastic stats for Arena for a 3 mana card. It really is. It's why Druid of the Flame is so good in Arena. It trades with 2/3s. It trades with 3/2s twice. You know, it takes out a lot of the early game cards. The problem with this one is the Inspire mechanic is kind of a downside. Inspire return this minion to your hand. So you play it on turn 3, and the problem is, yeah, okay, let's say it takes 4 damage and you want to bring it back to your hand to save it. The problem is the lack of tempo in plays like that. So Inspire could save the minion, but you're taking a minion off the board. It costs 3 more mana to play it again. Is that worth it for a 2/5? Probably not. I think the Inspire is meant to be a downside because the stats are quite strong. It could be good every now and again, but I doubt it. So how much is the Inspire downside is what you look at next. And it's not that bad. I mean, how many times on turn 4 do you want to be using your hero power? Or turn 5 or turn 6 by default? And again, I think this is the problem people aren't seeing with these Inspire cards. You don't want to use your hero power. You know, you want to be getting board presence. You want to be getting cards down. You don't want to be using your hero power every single blooming turn, unless you're a handful of classes / decks who wouldn't play this anyway. It's an okay card. It's good in Arena. I'd play it in Arena. Not going to see any blame constructed because it doesn't do enough for the stats. The Inspire mechanic is uninspiring. Get it? Boop! Effigy. I love this card. This card's awesome and being severely underrated, in my opinion, by the interwebs. When a friendly minion dies, summon a random minion with the same cost. That's really good. If this gets anything at 3 mana or over, it's value instantly, pretty much. Well, anything 4 mana or bigger, it's value. 3 mana, it's just breaking even. Okay, you don't know what minion you're going to get, but that's not necessarily always a bad thing, not necessarily always a good thing. It's harder to play around, you know, your opponent is already playing around Mirror Entity, Duplicate, which has the same on minion death. I'm just rambling. I think this card is really, really strong. At the moment, Tempo Mages are kind of struggling to find secrets that will go into their decks. We're using Mirror Entity because Mirror Entity is really strong. Mirror Entity copies the opponent's minion when it's played. Duplicate, which is an okay card, but Effigy is going to be very, very strong, especially if you have a deck with high level cards. You know, if you have a deck with primarily 5 mana or stronger minions, then something like Effigy is always going to be insane value because you're playing 3 mana for a 5 mana card that gets played instantly. That's the thing, it gets summoned. If it went into your hand, this would be much weaker, but the fact that it's instantly summoned is what makes this card so good. It's a better Duplicate, it's the second best secret in the game. It's going to see a lot of play. I expect to see Effigy in pretty much every mage deck, in my opinion, except Freeze Mage. King's Defender. This card depresses me. I play Control Warrior primarily, that's my main class these days. Control Warrior, Druid, Tempo Mage are probably my big 3. And I was really hoping for some nice warrior cards to get excited about. A new weapon, maybe, but this is not it. King's Defender, I love the art, by the way. The art's fantastic. But it kind of falls between 2 mana, 3-2 at the moment that we have, which is Fiery Winax, or the 4 mana Death Spite, which is 4-2 with a little Death Rattle effect. So it kind of sits nicely between the 2 weapons. That's great, I suppose. But the effect's rubbish. So 3 mana, 3-2. So by default, it's a Fiery War Axe. With a battle cry, if you have a minion with Taunt, gain +1 durability. Now, when this card was first shown, it was gain +1 durability for every minion with Taunt you have. So the card was a lot stronger. If you had 4 Taunt minions, you'd have a 3/7 weapon, which is really good. And okay, it doesn't really work in any current deck because you don't play that many Taunt minions. You maybe play Sludge Belcher, and that's probably it in terms of warriors at the moment. Control Warriors play Sludge Belcher and maybe a Sunwalker, but it's unlikely. So you'd have to kind of build a deck around this weapon, which a deck that probably isn't that viable anyway. But with only +1 durability on top of that, nah, just doesn't do anything for the cost. You'd play Fiery War Axe first, and you'd play Death Spite. It's not good enough to replace either of those weapons. You don't want 3 weapons in your deck because it's too many. That's why we don't see Arcanite Reaper played anymore. It's not strong. It's rubbish, frankly, and people are trying to defend it, and they're wrong. In Arena, it's okay. It's a Eagle Horn Bow, which is also a 3 mana 3/2 with a little way to get more of them, but it rarely does. It's okay in Arena because early game trading and weapons are just very strong in Arena in general. So that makes it alright. And plus I think in Arena you're more likely to have an early game Taunt minion. You're more likely to pick up like an Anoyotron or a Silverback Patriarch because the game's forcing you to take rubbish cards. So I think it's better in Arena than it is in Constructed. It'll see no play in Constructed at all. It will not be touched in Constructed. But in Arena, I'd pick it up in Arena over... what rarity? It's a rare... There's some bad cards I'm sure I'd pick it up over. Don't know what. Silent Knight, newly seen today. This card is actually pretty bloody good. Oddly enough. It looks rubbish. Stealth, Divine Shield, 3 mana 2/2. So let's just look at the stats. 3 mana 2/2 is bad, right? That's fine. But this card is made to be buffed. The thing with this card is, this is currently the stickiest minion in the game. We've never had a Stealth Divine Shield minion before. We've got Stealth minions, we've got Divine Shield minions. We don't have any that combine the two. And why that's important is, Stealth... Shut up, phone. The main reason Stealth minions get killed, in general, is because of AoE damage. If you've got a 4 mana, a 4 health Stealth card, and your opponent uses Flame Strike, your Stealth card's going to die, even if it's in Stealth. With a Stealth Divine Shield, that requires 2 separate AoE abilities, or a Twisting Nether, for your opponent to take down the minion, and that's actually really pretty good. So it's very sticky. Now, this card is not going to work in a lot of decks. This card is made for Priest, it's made for Paladin, it's maybe made for Druid if we end up getting buff Druids out there, which is possible, but Druid buffs aren't that great. But Priest and Paladin should love this card. You know, you play this on 3 mana, or even better, if you're a Priest, you coin this out on turn 2. So you've got a 2 mana Stealth, 2/2 Divine Shield. Turn 3, you play Valen's Chosen, which makes this into a a 4/6 Stealth Divine Shield. You take out his 3 mana card, you take out his 4 mana card, and you're probably still alive. This guy is really, really good for Priest and Paladin. You play this on turn 3 as a Paladin. On turn 4, you put Blessing of Kings on it. Suddenly, you've got a Stealth Divine Shield 6/6 on the board. Again, really good value. So whilst the initial stats aren't good, this is a card made for buffing. And I think we will see Paladin and Priest both experiment with it. Whether it is played down the line, I'm unsure. I don't think it will. I think it's a bit slow, possibly, for the meta, but we'll see. I don't think it'll be played long term, but I think it'll definitely be experimented with, which is exciting. You know, cards don't always have to be good, but if they're interesting, that's a lot more exciting. This is a new thing we've never seen before. It's interesting. That's all I need, you know? Boop, boop. The first legendary, Eydis Darkbane, a 3-mana legendary, something we've not had before, unless I've gone crazy. Clothing is... You can see what they're going for, I suppose. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. So, to clarify, because people are doing this weird. Obviously, if my opponent plays this card and I look at it, it will say when you. But that's not how it works. If I target Eydis with my own Frostbolt, for example, to do 3 damage... she will not do the 3 damage effect. That's not how this works. It has to be the owner. The owner has to target it. So again, we come back to... This is quite similar to the last card, in that this is made for certain classes. Warlocks, no. Hunters, no. Hunters actually don't have a buff card. This card is made for Priest, Paladin, maybe Druid, maybe Mage, as we'll talk about in a minute. So first of all, the stats. 3 mana, 3/4 is really good. That's... Spider Tank kind of level. In Arena, this is strong. If it's up against weak legendaries, you'd take it. That's the problem. In Arena, cards are always the same rarity when you're picking between the 3 of them. If this was a common, you'd take it every time, even without the effects, because 3 mana, 3/4 is really good stats. But stats like that matter less in Constructed than they do in Arena. Stats matter a lot in Arena. There's less spells. It's more about effective trading. But in Constructed, it tends to be about combos and stuff. So basically, it's a good card though. You play this on turn 3, it's a Paladin. On turn 4, you stick a Blessing of Kings on it. It does 3 damage. You've got a 7/8. It's pretty bloody strong. It really is. But only in those 2 classes, and maybe Druid. This is the problem. The Legendary completely relies on being buffed. And not that many classes actively play buff cards. Priests play Valiant's Chosen and Powered Shield, so they've got viability. Paladins play Blessing of Kings, some of them play Blessing of Might, maybe Blessing of Wisdom. More viability. Same. So those 2 definitely have options. Druid doesn't currently play any buffs, but could. And who else? Mages. Now the reason mages could work with this is a lot of mages at the moment are mech mages. Or tempo mages that rely on items called spare parts, which are 1 mana spells that do stuff like +1 attack, +1 health, give stealth, freeze a minion, blah 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 blah. If you could make a spare part deck that had enough spare parts to really get value out of Eydis Darkbane, you'd get a lot. You would achieve a lot. You know, if you target this with a couple of spare parts, which is only 2 mana, and you've dealt 6 damage, that's insane value. It really is. It's worth noting that deal 3 damage to a random enemy, not 3 damage randomly, which is different. So it means it'll hit something for 3. It won't go 1/1/1 or 1/1/1. It'll go 3, 3, 3 kind of thing. I've rambled a bit on this one. I'm not sure why. I think it's good in... I think it'll see play in Priest more than anything else. Maybe Paladin, probably not Druid. I don't see where it fits into Mech Mage or Tempo Mage. I think people will experiment with it. I think people will try it out with spare parts. And I don't think it'll work. But it'll be worth a shot. Fjola Lightbane, her sister, is... pretty much the same idea. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain Divine Shield instead. I think this is slightly weaker than the 3 damage effect because it does less to the board. But, I mean, again, you play this on turn 3 as a Paladin. You put turn 4, you put Blessing of Kings on it. You've got a 7/8 with Divine Shield. That's really strong. So, I don't know. I think there'll be decks. I think you'll play both of them. I don't think there's any deck where you'll only play one of these cards, you know? because it does make sense. They both benefit from the same kind of idea. You want to make sure you've got one of them on the field. Yeah, you'll play both of them, or you'll play none of them. Priest, Paladin, maybe Mage, probably not. I think Priest is your best bet. Moving on, Tournament Medic. Inspire, restore 2 health to your hero. People are excited about this card. People shouldn't be excited about this card. It doesn't do anything. It's rubbish. It's just the 2 health isn't enough, you know? And so you play this turn 4. It's a 1/8, so it's going to stick around, but it does nothing to the board. This is rubbish in Arena, let's put that out there right now. This is a bad Arena card. So is it any good in Constructed? People are saying, oh, maybe you put it in Warlock, so that you don't lose your 2 health from tapping. The problem is Warlocks want to lose 2 health from tapping, because you're trying to get down... Bloody hell. You're trying to get down so you can play Molten Giants. So you don't put it in Warlock. You definitely don't put it in Druid, you don't put it in Rogue. Maybe put it in Priest, but... The problem is, health isn't that important. So many times. That... I don't know. People are saying this is like an anti-Face Hunter card. That's about the only time I can see this being realistic. You want to keep restoring health to your hero, so that you can deal with the tide of damage coming from the Face Hunter. The problem with that is, you have to Inspire every single turn to get the value, and to just to out-heal the Hunter's face ability, the hero power from the Hunter. Do you want to be using Inspire every single turn, on turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, instead of trying to control the board, instead of trying to stop the onslaught of face cards the Hunter's playing? No, not really. It's not a bad card, it just doesn't do enough, it's too slow. I think if it was a 2 mana... I think if it was 2 attacks 7 health or 2 attacks 6 health, it would see more play, because then it could at least trade with a 3/2 or double trade with 2 3s, stuff like that. It would do something on the board. As it is, it just sits there like a blob of healingness and doesn't do enough for the mana cost. You don't want to be inspiring that many times. People don't get that, and they will. But no, it's an okay card. It's nothing special. It's below average. Boop. Yes! Savage Combatant. I love this card so much. I love this card. Oh my god. So, the reason why, I used to primarily play Druid. Until last month, I was Druid for like a year. Before I swapped to Control Warriors, my main class. I kind of flipped between the two. Druids have never had a good card from expansion packs, or DLC, whatever you want to call it. We've had Druid of the Fang and Druid of the Flame, which kind of come close if Beast Druid becomes a thing, but other than that, Poison Siege was rubbish. That Flamey dude was rubbish. Dark Whispers is awesome, but rubbish. You know, we've never had a good card as Druid. This is a good card. I love this card. This is like my favourite card in the entire expansion so far. I have a habit where when a new expansion comes out, there's one card that I craft golden. So far, Savage Combatant is that card. I love it, but whether it's any good or not, we will see. So it's a 4 mana 5/4, which is good. It's what you'd expect. A 4 mana 4/5 would have been a lot stronger, because there's a lot of spells that do 4 damage, so you want something with 5 health to survive that extra damage. If you play it on turn 4, it's probably not going to survive to turn 5. Inspire, give your hero +2 attack this turn. That means whenever you hit hero power as Druid, you'd get 3 attack and 2 armor. No, 3 attack and 1 armor, I apologise. Which for 2 mana is really, really strong, and very good at clearing the board in the early game. So, the problem is the card isn't going to survive long enough for you to use your Inspire ability multiple times. That's why this is a Druid card. This card shines if you get it out early. Druids have Innovate, Druids have Wild Growth. If you get this card out on turn 2 or 3, rather than turn 4, and you can begin using your hero power to take things out like a Shredder, you are getting insane value on a decent sized body. It's going to be completely reliant on that. It's also a beast, which means if Beast Druid ever becomes a thing, this guy is like an auto include basically. It's a 4 mana beast as well, which is important because we didn't have a good 4 mana beast. I love this card. I am going to experiment the hell out of this card in Arena. It's going to be insane, because that 3 attack on your hero power is just really, really strong. If it survives for 1 turn, you'll get value out of it. I know I said you won't use your hero power that much for the other classes, but none of the other abilities, the Inspire abilities, have given such a huge boost. You know, +2 attack is crazy powerful. It really is. I love that. If you get this out on turn 2 in Arena, right through an Innovate, I think you win the game, basically. Unless your opponent has like a 4 mana spell ready. flame thingy. I don't know. Very, very strong. Love this card. My favourite card of the expansion so far. Gonna see play. Will be experimented with. Probably not strong enough quite yet for constructed. I think Beast Druid will need something more for it to be viable. But if Beast Druid ever becomes viable, that'll be a thing. There's still a lot of cards to go for Druid. That's the only Druid card so far. So maybe we'll see Beast Druid being a thing in this expansion. Who knows? Maiden of the Lake. 2 mana, 4 mana, 2/6, which is... it's alright. Your hero power costs 1. It's alright. It's alright. It suffers from being a 4 mana card. I played this on turn 4, which is... it's not a strong turn 4 by any means. You know, it's dies to a Yeti and a 2 mana card. But let's say it survives the turn. Next turn you can play a 4 mana card and then use your hero ability. But again, do you want to be using your hero ability that much? No. I mean, I just said you do if you're a druid, but the problem is you're not going to have this on the board and the Savage Combatant on the board. I mean, maybe you will if it's like turn 8 or 9, but again, do you want to be playing these cards on turn 8 or 9? No. This is my problem with all these cards. They require synergy to work together, completely. Hero power costing 1 is useless by itself. If you combine that with the Fallen Hero from before, where your hero power does 2 damage as a mage, and the Garrison Commander, that's really good. That means you can do 4 damage for 2 mana. That's really strong. It really is. And no cards costed. But that requires a 4 mana card, a 2 mana card, a 2 mana card. So it's a turn 8 play. Turn 10 play to do that, to do all of it. If you want to do it before turn 10, you have to assume some of them are going to survive on the board, and I just don't think they will. All these ones with Inspire like this, they have Taunt on them effectively. It just means your opponent sees the Maiden of the Lake, they're going to kill the Maiden of the Lake, they're going to target her. Her stats are pretty good, she trades for 2/3/2s, which is pretty strong, but I just think they're going to get targeted so quickly that unless you're a druid and you can get these cards out earlier via Innovate and Wild Growth, I just don't see the value. I don't think it'll be played. I think people will experiment with it. We'll see this card in Inspired decks, because if Inspired decks are a thing, like decks that completely rely on your hero power, if they're a thing, this card will be pretty strong. I just don't think they'll be a thing. Boop! Holy Champion. Whenever a character is healed, gain +2 attack. Great little card this, and not just because she's wearing one of the best armor sets in World of Warcraft, which is Tier 6 Priest. Oh, look at it. It's so cool. Anyways, Holy Champion used to be called something else. Whenever a character is healed, gain +2 attack. So it's kind of like Light Warden, which is a 1/2 with the same effect, but it's a bigger body. Is this any good? Is the problem. So at the moment, as a priest, what do you play as a 4-drop? Shadow Madness is a spell. Shredder. Shredder is like the default 4-drop. This actually trades really well with... I like this card. Yeah, I'm gonna say this is good. I'm gonna say this might see play. It trades with a Shredder and survives. You could then heal it up, go up to a 5/3 in that case, and you'd then trade with a Sludge Belcher. It trades pretty bloody well with everything in the 4 mana slot, and pretty much everything in the 5 mana slot if you get at least 1 heal out. She's got the potential to go absolutely crazy. She's awesome art-wise. I think Holy Champion is going to see some experimentation. Whether it sees long-term play is another matter, but it's a good, beefy, solid 4-drop. It's going to be insane in Arena, by the way. Absolutely insane in Arena. It's worth noting it says whenever a character is healed, gain +2 attack. So you could heal yourself, you could heal your opponent's face. It's just any character. If your opponent's doing any healing, you'll gain +2 attack, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, crazy strong in Arena because it's big, it's solid, it's not going to die like when you play it. You'll probably get at least 1 heal off, in which case it becomes quite a good value. And then you've got the potential to combine and get with things like Northshire Cleric to draw cards while you're healing, blah, 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 blah. Strong card. Gonna see play. Boop! Draenei Totem Carver. So I said before, totems would be important. And this would be why. Battle Cry, gain +1/+1 for each friendly totem. So we have to compare this to a current card called Frostwolf Warlord, which is a 5 mana 4/4, gain +1/+1 for every friendly minion. I don't think this is very good, unfortunately, Mrs. Draenei Totem Carver. The problem is, right, I mean, if you play her late game, you'll get the value out of her, but then again, she's not a particularly strong late game card. If you've got 1 totem on the field and you play her, she's pretty strong. A 4 mana 5/5, that's pretty good. The problem you'll have is against shamans now. I mean, it's already the case at the moment that Totems are effectively all taunted. You know, you always want to take down your opponent's totems, particularly things like spell damage totem. So your opponent is going to target your totems, and given that we know there's a lot of totem synergy in the new expansion, people are going to start targeting totems even more than they have been. So I think I think your opponent is going to take down your totems too many times before turn 4. You don't want to spend 2 mana summoning a totem on turn 2. Let's say on turn 2 you play your 2 mana 3/4. Your opponent's obviously going to take that down anyway because that's like a big focus. It's a crazy strong minion. On turn 3, if you've played the 2 mana 3/4, you wouldn't be able to play your 3 mana 3/2 summon the totem. If you do play that one, then your opponent is going to kill the totem next turn because they know that you've got the Totem Carver waiting. If your opponent isn't able to kill the totem, then you're probably winning already. I don't know. I'd play a Shredder over this. I don't think it's going to see play. I don't think it's strong enough. I don't think there's an effective enough way to get a lot of totems onto the board, basically. If there's like a mass totem summon card, maybe this would see play, but at the moment I think it's too slow. It's pretty bad in Arena as well. Poisoned Blade, the worst card so far. This card is awful. Absolutely awful. Right, so by default, it's a 4 mana 1/3. That's horrendous, okay? For comparison's sake, Death Spite by Warriors is a 4 mana 4/2 with a good Death Rattle effect, which is like Whirlwind. So the point is, the hero power gives the weapon +1 attack instead of replacing it. This is the problem with Rogue in this expansion. Inspire relies on you using your hero power many times, yeah? Rogues don't want to do that. Rogues, when they use their hero power, get a 1/2 weapon, so it's a dagger that does 1 damage twice. So you don't want to keep using your hero power because you don't gain anything from it. A mage can keep pinging for 1 damage, a warlock can keep drawing cards, a shaman can keep playing totems. A rogue is replacing the weapon they already have. So it's rubbish for rogues, this expansion so far. This isn't helping. I can see what they're going for. So basically it's a way to use your hero power and get value for it. But you'd have to use your hero power like 3 times, 2-3 times at least, to get value out of it. And at that point it's a 6-8 mana card, 9-10 mana card. It's too slow. It's way too slow. This could have been 2 mana, in my opinion. It would have been fine. Play this on 2 mana. On 3 mana, you have to use your hero power again. That gets you a 2/3. So far you've played 4 mana for a 2/3, which is rubbish, but at least you got 2/3 out of it. Next turn, you do it again. You've got a 3/2. Assuming you've hit something on turn 2, or you've got a 3/3, which again isn't that strong on turn 4, and you've had to put 6 mana into it. It's just weak. Don't know what they were thinking. Even on 2 mana, I don't think this would see play. I really don't think it would see play at all on 2 mana. On 4 mana, it's insanely overcosted. Insane. Ugh, rubbish card. This card, however, is awesome. Inspire, give your totems +2 attack. Now, to clarify, the Inspire effect comes out after the totem. So if you hit your totem button, and you summon a Taunt totem, you would get a 2/2 totem from that. So that's awesome, right? The problem with this guy is he basically has to Inspire to get value. 5 mana 3/6 is weak-ish. That's the same stats as a Water Elemental, which is a 4 mana 3/6. So 5 mana 3/6 obviously isn't fantastic. If you get the Inspire effect off once, though, it becomes a lot better value. You know, it's +2 in stats effectively, so it becomes a 5 mana 5/6 or 7 mana 5/6 with a totem. It's hard to whatever. If he survives 1 turn, he'll get good value because he inspires the new totem you play, but he's also going to inspire all the others you've already played. If you can manage to combo him with Maiden of the Lake or Garrison Commander, blah 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 blah, it becomes even better. I think this is a strong card, but it might just be a little bit too slow. I don't know. The chances of you having, if you've got multiple totems on the board and you play this guy and you manage to use it, you pretty much win the game. You know, that's insane value. But your opponent is going to burn down those totems because they know you're relying on your totems now as a shaman. They know you've got that totem synergy. I really like the card. I think it can be really strong. I think it's going to be great in Arena, which is slower. But I don't think I think it's going to be a little bit too slow for the constructed meta, unfortunately. Which is the problem with a lot of these cards. But not this one as much. I love this card. This card's great. A 5 mana 4/5, which again is overcosted by 1 mana. It's the same stats as a Yeti, but it costs 1 more. And okay, this has the same problem as the last guy in that it has to survive a turn to really be valuable. This guy is actually less likely to survive a turn, but the Inspire effect is, in my opinion, quite a bit better. So you use your Inspire effect, you're spending 2 mana to draw a card, basically, and get your hero ability. 2 mana for free to draw a card, and for it not to cost you a card to do that is actually really quite strong. If this guy survives, he'll win you the game on his own. The problem is making him survive. It's hard to kind of judge where he'll fall in the meta. I think he's good. Is he stronger than Lower Theb or Sludge Belcher, which is what's played at the moment? In a normal deck, probably not. Is he stronger than an Inspired deck? Probably, but the problem is, will Inspired decks work? I think we have to go forward with the viewpoint that, let's say Inspired decks will work. Otherwise, we can't judge any of these cards. It's impossible. So if we say Inspired decks will work, you will be able to use these Inspire abilities. The meta's going to slow down a lot to let you do that. This card will become very, very strong. Combine this with a Garrison Commander and a Maiden of the Lake or something, and you're spending 2 mana to draw 2 cards and get your benefit of double hero power. Really, really strong in a slow meta. Very good in Arena, this. Very good in Arena, because Arena is slower, it's more likely to survive, you're more likely to be able to use your Inspire ability on the next turn. Boop! Clockwork Knight. Awesome art. Let's put that out there right now. Really, really cool art. Not a good card. For comparison's sake, Priests have a 5 mana 5/5 mech, which gives a friendly mech +4 health. +4 health is a lot better than +1/+1. It's 2 stats better. It's 2 whole stats better. This guy's okay. Mech cards will probably fall off a little bit now. We've had 2 expansions since GVG. It's okay. It doesn't really fit into any current mech cards. I mean, it's a good card. It's a 5 mana 5/5. It's nice and solid, with a nice little benefit on top of it. Will it see play in Mech Mage? Maybe. Oh, I don't know. Will it see play in Mech Mage? It might do. It might do. It's a slightly slower card than a lot of the cards the Mech Mage plays, which is why I'm a little worried about it. But I can see it maybe replacing some of the bad secrets, or we'll see. I think it might be a little bit slow. Just a little bit. It's alright in Arena as well. It's 5 mana 5/5, which is pretty good in Arena. It trades with a Yeti and survives, which is always positive. But in Arena, you're probably not going to have enough mechs to reliably get an effect from the battle cry. So it's an average. It's a 5 mana 5/5 by and large in Arena. Boop! Next legendary, and the only class legendary we've seen before, Wilfred Fizzlebang. Cards you draw from your hero power cost 0. In brackets, like that. Shouldn't do that, should I? Cards you draw from your hero power cost 0. People see this and are like, oh my god, that's so cool. It's not, it's rubbish. Basically. It's not a good card. The problem is the health. Make it a 2/6 and the card becomes so much better. You play this on turn 6, you're not going to get to use your hero power because he's dead. Play this on turn 8. So you play him, it's a 4/4, you've got that on the board. You use your hero power, you draw a card. The dream is it'll be a Mountain Giant or a Molten Giant or something, because this is only going to be played in Handlock or something, and you get a 20 mana card, or more like a 7 mana card for 0 mana. Great. In that kind of scenario, this guy is a 1 mana 4/4, effectively, which is really strong. But that's in that scenario. If you draw Molten Coil, if you draw even like Hellfire and stuff like that, no, don't like him. He's rubbish. The problem is his health. He doesn't survive on the board. If you could use your hero power a few times to justify his high mana cost, maybe this guy would see play. If he was 4 mana, maybe he'd see play. 6 mana for a 4/4, he's just going to get wiped out in 1 turn. You have to play him on turn 8, or you're probably not going to get value from him at all, because the chances of him surviving are pretty much 0. And if he has survived, you're winning the game anyway. So if you play him on turn 8, it's still not that great. Handlocks are not about to incorporate Inspire mechanics into their deck, so they're not going to be using their hero power twice. They're not going to be using it for 1 mana on turn 7 instead. Won't see play. It'll be experimented with, won't see play. Too much mana cost. Kodo Rider, Inspire, summon a 3/5 War Kodo. Probably the best Inspire effect so far. Inspire for 2 mana to summon a 3/5. That is crazy value. Absolutely crazy. But will he survive? He's very expensive. 6 mana card for a 3/5 is obviously pretty awful. That's 3/5 is weak for a 4 mana card. Never mind a 6 mana card. So that's the problem. If this guy survives, let's say you play him on turn 8, because that's when you're probably going to play him. You're not going to play this guy on turn 6, that'd be silly. So you play Kodo Rider turn 8. You use Inspire, you spend 8 mana for 2 3/5s, so 6/10 in stats on turn 8, which is... Nah, it's not awful. It's not awful, but it's not fantastic. 6/10 in stats, turn 8. Okay, if he survives to the next turn and you get to hit that button again, that is 9/15 of stats for 10 mana, and suddenly you're in Value Town. Oh, Trump. Basically, this guy survives 1 turn, he's insane. If he doesn't survive 1 turn, he's a little bit below average, I think is the best way to look at it. If you manage to combine this guy with the other Inspire cards, which you won't, but if you do, he becomes even better value. If you could cast this on turn 10 and you've already got a Garrison Commander on the field, that'd be insane, you know, the value. I actually really like this card, but the problem is he relies on 2 things. 1, on Inspire decks being a thing, and 2, on the meta really slow. This is a slow card. You know, he comes down onto the board and does nothing, basically. So the meta needs to slow down a lot for this guy to get value. If that happens, I think this guy is going to be a very, very highly rated pick. I think it's going to be very, very strong, but it is reliant on a very slow meta. But I really like it. I like the design. I think it's cool. Good in Arena. Justicar Trueheart. Battle Cry. Replace your starting hero power with a better one. So basically, for every class, it doubles your hero power, except Hunters, which don't go to 4 attack, they go to 3 attack. So the hero ability does 3 damage to face. It's nice that Blizzard did that and realised that 4 damage hero ability Hunters would be a little bit insane. So Priests heal 4, Warriors gain 4 armor, Druids get +2 attack, +2 armor, etc, etc. Let's look at the stats first. She's a 6 mana 6/3, which is awful. The attack might look okay, guys, but the 3 health means she is going to die like that. She dies to a I can't really click. She dies to a multitude of 2 mana cards. Never mind 3 mana cards. She dies to some 1 mana cards. She is weak in terms of stats. So we have to judge whether the Battle Cry is any good. And it depends. If you are a rogue, which means you get a 2 mana 2/2 weapon, the Battle Cry is rubbish. If you are a shaman, which means you get to pick which totem you play out of the default 4, the hero power is rubbish. Warlock, which means you don't lose health when you use tap, rubbish. The ones that are going to benefit from this are Druids as well. 2 mana, +2 attack, +2 armor, endgame, nah. So the main ones really is going to be Paladin, which gets 2+1, 2/1/1s, which is okay. Paladins like to hit that hero power quite a lot to get some value out of their mana, to get guys on the field, you know, to have that board presence. It's okay if you're a Paladin. Priests heal for 4, which could be pretty powerful. The best one, by far, in my opinion, is Warrior. I say this as a Control Warrior player, this card actually really excites me. I've been monitoring, after finding out about this card, I've been monitoring just how often I use my hero power. That was kind of power and ability in one word, a powerty. I use my hero powerty all the time as a Control Warrior, because you really want to build your armor up. You're trying to survive till the end game. You're trying to make sure you've got enough armor for Shield Slam. So armor is really, really valuable. And to get 4 from each click of that button is crazy value. She may go down and die instantly, but I am more than willing to sacrifice 1 turn and like a weak minion for having 4 armor from that hero ability. I think that is going to be very, very strong in Control Warrior. I think it might prove to be a little bit too slow because of the 6 mana. I think it probably could have been a 5 mana card and it would have been fine. We shall see, but I think if anyone's going to benefit, it will be Control Warriors. We're going to be absolute tanks in this expansion. I'm looking forward to it. In Arena, this card's awful. If you go into half pawn right now, half PWN, and go into their arena ranking list, you'll see this card ranked as rank 1 excellent. They are wrong. In my opinion, they are like really, really wrong. This card is awful in Arena. Because Arena is all about board control, and effective trading of minions, and she doesn't. She just dies instantly. Like, to know, she's just dead. And the problem is, a lot of hero powers rely on interaction. Let's say Control Warrior. You play this as a warrior in Constructed, that's fantastic. You play it as a warrior in Arena, that's rubbish. Because the synergy isn't there. In Constructed, you can build your deck around having lots of armor. You can have shield slams and shield blocks and shield maidens and all these cards that are armor interactive. You can't do that in Arena. That's not how Arena works. Arena's random. You can get no cards. You can get no shield slams. You can get nothing that relies on armor at all. So, the battle cry is a lot different in Arena, where you can't reliably... She's better for some classes than she is for others. She's okay in Priest. She's okay-ish in Paladin. She's okay in Mage, which is a 2 damage fireball, which is pretty good. She's too slow for Arena. I know that doesn't make sense, but she's not too slow. She's too soft. If she was a 6 mana 3/6, I'd be more forgiving. She'd at least survive a little bit, maybe get some damage out there. As it is, she's going to trade really badly. Your opponent's going to take board control, and you're going to lose the game. Awful, awful card in Arena. Like, really bottom tier in Legendaries, in my opinion, for Arena. Going to be very good in Constructed in some decks. Mages will never play this. Shamans, Warlocks should never play this. They may do, but they shouldn't. Next card, Coldarra Drake. Another card that is being really highly rated. Really highly rated. And it shouldn't be. You can use your hero power any number of times. Great. Woo, I can do 1 damage 5 times on turn 10 and play nothing else. That's not good. That's really weak. Now, if you play Justicar, then this guy gets a little bit stronger. The problem is, Justicar's a battle cry, so if Justicar dies, you still get the effect. If Coldarra Drake dies, which it will, this guy's got a big old taunt sign on his face, then you can't do it anymore, and I just don't think you get any benefit from it. You play this on turn 6, it's gonna die. Basically, if it doesn't die, you've got good ball control, you're probably going to win the game anyway. But let's say you play this on turn 6 and it survives. It's now turn 7. What are you going to do with that ability? What are you going to... You can ping 3 times. You can ping for 1 damage 3 times. And... who cares? That's rubbish! Why would I want to spend turn 7 pinging for 3 damage, or turn 8 pinging for 4 damage? And yes, if you've got a Maiden of the Lake on the field, you could ping 7 times and it gets a little bit better, although 7 damage for 7 mana isn't fantastic. If you've got a Maiden of the Lake and a Fallen Hero, you can ping 7 times for 14 damage, and now we're in business. The problem is, you need the Coldarra Drake to survive, you need the Maiden of the Lake to survive, you need the Fallen Hero to survive. If all of those have survived, you've won anyway. The card is just too slow, it really is. The stats are okay, 6 mana 6/6 is fine, but unless the meta really slows down, I mean slower than it's ever been, to the point where you can have 5-6 minions on the board and it's a-okay, the card is not going to see play. People are going to experiment with it. People are very excited about it. I think it's way too slow. I don't think it does nearly enough for the mana cost. The hero power would have to be much better than it currently is for this really to matter. And it's a mage-only card, of course. If this was warrior, would I be more tempted? No, still probably not. I don't think it's very strong. I think it's too expensive. I think if it was a 4 mana 4/4, maybe it'd see more play. 6 mana 6/6, it's just too expensive. You don't want to be hero powering 5 times in the end game. Why would you? It achieves nothing. In Arena, it's even worse. Again, you go into Hearthstone, and this card is being rated as tier 1 excellent, and it's not. It's bad. I don't understand. And the thing is, it's an epic, right? So you got to compare it to the other epics, and it's better than a lot of the epics in the game. Oddly enough, epic is probably the worst tier of cards in the game. Epic cards tend to be rubbish. There's only about 5 good epics, 5 good neutral epics anyway, and no other good mage epics. So you'll probably see this card quite a lot in Arena, because it will be one of the better epic picks. But that's only because most epics suck. In Arena, it's a 6 mana 6/6, which is fine. It trades pretty well. It's a vanilla card, and that's the problem. In Arena as well, it's going to just be a 6 mana 6/6. And even worse in Arena, you won't be able to play Fallen Hero and Maiden of the Lake. You won't be able to have all that synergy, because that's not how Arena works. Arena's not about synergy, it's about board control. And this card relies on synergy to be value, and it's just not going to get it. It's a bad Arena card, it's a bad Constructed card. Quote me on this, come back in a month, and we'll see. I could be completely wrong, I accept that. I don't think I am. Boop! Ball of Spiders. This card's rubbish. Summon 3/1/1 web spinners. So already you're paying 6 mana for 3 mana's worth of cards. Now obviously you're putting all the cards together into one card, which is more value. Anytime you can have multiple cards effect for only one card, that's worth some mana. It's not worth 3 mana. This is way too expensive. This could be 4 mana and I think it would be okay. For comparison's sake, for 3 mana, Paladins can summon 3/1/1s and gain a weapon. Now, with Ball of Spiders, your web spinners do also draw cards, but they're random beasts. They could be rubbish. It's a good card draw mechanic, it really is, but it's way too expensive. There's nothing on the board, it's way too slow, it's rubbish in Arena, it's rubbish in Constructed. Skycap'n Kragg. Charge! Because he's a pirate, you get it? I like this guy, I think he's good. He's just not good yet. So 7 mana, 4/6 with charge, which is pretty strong. 4/6 with charge is pretty good. Our best charge minion at the moment outside of the 8/8 King Crush is the 6 mana, 4/2 Argent Commander? I can't remember the name. Argent Commander? Anyway, it's a 4/2 with Divine Shield, and that's pretty good. This is potentially even better. The problem is it's 7 mana for 4/6 with stats, and the charge is not worth... That's usually like a 4 mana card, right? For a 4/6. Actually, that's quite a strong 4 mana card. Especially with charge. I think realistically, if this was default, none of this costs 1 less for each friendly pirate, this would be a 5 mana card. A 5 mana 4/6 with charge, it's pretty good. In Arena in particular, I'd play it. You'd definitely pick it. The problem is you need friendly pirates to get that, and pirate decks are rubbish at the moment. This is a card for the future. If pirate decks ever become viable, this card will probably see play. If pirate decks never become viable, this card will never see play because it's overcosted, because it's based on having a pirate deck. If you can have 2 pirates on the field, 5 mana 4/6 with charge is okay. Charge doesn't tend to be that important, generally speaking, but I think for 5 mana this would be playable, and the only way it's playable at 5 mana is if you have many pirates, and you're not going to have many pirates because why would you have many pirates? This card is awful in Arena as well, because again, you're not going to have any pirates. North Sea Kraken. Yeah. Penultimate card, folks. Penultimate card. Thank God it's been an hour. North Sea Kraken. Battlecry, deal 4 damage. This card's awesome. In Arena. In Constructed, this card is way too slow. Way too slow in Constructed. You're never going to use this in Constructed unless you're... The way I see it, this is a good card for new players. It introduces them to big, high attack minions, it gives them something strong, it's a common, so it's going to be quite easy for new players to get. It's a good way to have something big and powerful in a free-to-play deck for players who are new to the game. I like it for that. It's never going to see Constructed play at high levels because it's way too slow, it doesn't do anything really with the Battlecry. 4 damage is good, but at 9 mana, it'll die to... At better level play, it'll die to things like BGH, and it'll be removed really quickly. But for beginner play, it's actually quite nice to just have a big, large, chunky minion. In Arena, I think it's really strong. A 9 mana 9/7 is great in terms of stats. It's going to trade for pretty much everything in the game. Actually, is there anything with higher? Higher than 9 attack. Deathwing has 12 attack. Does anything else have higher than 9 attack? I don't think so. So it's like the second strongest minion in the game in terms of attack damage. It goes down and it kills the Sarah and stuff, I really like this card in Arena. It's only a common as well, so you wouldn't want many of them in your deck because it's so slow, it's very endgame. But this thing comes down, it probably kills a minion, or at least helps kill a minion, gets a minion very close to death with its 4 damage attack, and then it sits there. It's a 9 mana 9/7, big, beefy, knocking at your opponent's minions left and right. And in Arena, you're less likely to have many high-level cards because most of the high-level, high-mana cost cards are legendaries. So people don't tend to have super late-game cards. And if you come out with a play like this and you take down one of his minions and you've got a big, beefy minion left at the end of it, you put yourself in quite a good position. It's a good Arena card. The final card, another brand new Giant, the Frost Giant. Costs 1 less for each time you use your hero power this game. I think I got cold. Cost 1 less for each time you use your hero power this game. It's not going to see play. It's just not. Decks aren't going to use their hero power enough to get value out of this. The decks that do get value out of this won't play it anyway. People are saying put it in Warlock. because they tend to tap quite a lot. But if you think about it, do they tap that much? You tap on turn 2, you tap on turn 3, turn 4 you play a Twilight Drake, turn 5 you play like a Mountain Giant, turn 6... Sorry, webcam recordings end at an hour for me, so I'm just going to finish this up quickly. It's not going to see play. That's the only way I can put it. Decks will not use their hero power enough to get value out of this. You need to use your hero power 4-5 times to get good value out of this. An 8-8 for 8 is bad in constructed. 7 for 8-8 isn't good in constructed either. 6 mana for 8-8 is okay. We're getting there slightly. But you look at Warlocks and they cast Molten Giant at like 2 or 1 or 0 when they're on lower health. You look at Mountain Giant, you can cast that on turn 4. Zoo taps quite a bit, but they use Sea Giant, and that tends to cost like 2 or 3, you know? Frost Giant it relies on the Inspired decks. And again, if Inspired decks turn out to be a thing, a lot of these cards I've said are rubbish will turn out to be really, really good. I just don't think the meta will be quite slow enough for a lot of them to get value. There's some good cards in this mix, even ones with Inspire. The Druid card's pretty good, the legendary 5-mana Saraad is pretty good. There's some good solid cards in here, but a lot of them rely a little bit too much on Inspire, I think, to be viable. I think people are getting overexcited about the possibilities that simply won't happen. And I think players, like Face Hunter players, and still things like Combo Druid, will relish a new super slow meta, and I think they'll dominate it. And that's the thing, if you're going to go super slow, is Inspire a good enough mechanic to warrant going super slow? Is it then better than the other super slow decks? And I don't think it is. So, but we'll see. At the end of the day, there's another like 100 cards still to go. A lot of stuff can change. We will be back for another episode of this, like in another 30 cards or so. I'm hoping they release a big bundle, or we'll just, when they all come out, we'll just review them all in order. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed this little dalliance into Hearthstone. For those of you who are interested in Hearthstone, basically, it's not going to be a super common thing. You know, it's just going to happen every now and again when something new and exciting happens, when a new adventure comes out. Maybe when the expansion comes out, we'll do some play as well as we experiment with the new cards. Thank you for joining me. Cheers, much love, and as always, bye-bye.